Hello and welcome to Financial Management 2. This is going to be an online class, same as our Financial Management 1 last semester. So it's very important for you guys to follow everything that we do on Moodle. There will be different kinds of activities on Moodle. Of course, I will post videos on Moodle. I will post some lecture notes as well. Sometimes there might be a situation when I don't manage to cover everything from the lecture notes in the videos. So in addition to watching the videos, I really suggest you guys go through the lecture notes as well. Of course, just as last semester, you will also have your weekly tests every week, most of the weeks except for today. You will have your tests on Moodle as well. Make sure you complete those tests. And beyond that, there will be some other activities such as forum posts and different kinds of discussions. Make sure you participate in those as well. But I'll tell you the details later on when it's time for you to know those details. Next, just as last semester, I'm going to continue with kind of trying to generally follow the information, the material from this particular book, but over the years I have already adjusted my teaching material, so you don't really have to buy the textbook. Everything that you need, I will try to post everything for you to access on Moodle. Of course, everybody already knows me. These are the details of how you can find me. Last semester in Financial Management 1, we've talked about some basics of finance, financial management, such as time, value of money, different kind of simple financial statements, balance sheets, income statement, and things like that. Today we're going to build up into more topics in financial management, mostly about analysis, such as analyzing investments. For investing, perhaps companies would want to get capital first required for those investments. So we'll have a look at cost of capital. How do companies acquire capital and what is it going to cost them? Of course, any kind of investments are also risky. So we're going to talk about the relationship between risks and return, or the profitability of those investments. And we'll look at more details of different pro forma financial statements and stuff like that. So this is our general kind of a plan for the semester, but for more details, we'll come back to that in about a minute. Usually here, introducing the course, I also talk about my rules for our behavior in class. This is going to be online class, so we can generally skip these slides. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask your questions either on Moodle or by email, or the best way to ask your questions is maybe even during our online classes. That will make the online class kind of a bit more interesting, a bit more interactive, instead of only me just speaking, and you guys, well, pretending to listen. You can ask your questions and everything will be that much more interesting. So if you are wondering how can you ask questions during the online classes if it's just a video, well, of course, if you're just watching the online class as a video, you can't ask your questions. But during the semester, we will have 3 or 4 weeks when we will have live online classes in Google Meets. That's when I really encourage you to ask any of the questions that you have. Okay, so here's what we're going to do for this semester. Let me see if I can make it look a little bit bigger. So this week, first week, to be honest, I want to take it easy. I'm just going to talk through the introduction to Financial Management 2. Just our plan for the semester. And that's going to be enough for the beginning of the semester. Let's start easy. But as you see, during the semester, we are going to cover a lot of the material. So you will have to get back into studying starting from actually next week. So the next 3 weeks we're going to spend on the chapter of capital budgeting. Actually, this was the chapter that we finished with in Financial Management 1. So we're going to pick up in the same chapter. That will also help us to review some of the material. And during the second week, next week, We're going to start with discussing capital budgeting in general, the theory of it, and we're going to move on to net present values. The week after that, we're going to talk about internal rate of return and NPV profile, the relationship between them, followed by other types of investment criteria, such as average accounting return, payback period, and so on. Once we finish with capital budgeting, we're going to talk about capital investments. That's probably going to take 3 weeks again. Some theory, we're going to find out what is a pro forma financial statements and what kind of pro forma financial statements are there. We're going to talk about tax shields, changes in net working capital, depreciation, salvage value, scenario analysis, and all those kind of topics within that capital investment chapter. And we'll finish the first half of the semester before the final exam with maybe just 1 week on lessons that we can learn from the history of capital markets. After that, midterm exam as usual in week 9, that's on 22nd of April. After that, we'll spend a couple of weeks on risk and return, talking about expected return for a particular stock as well as a portfolio or collection of stocks, and move on to different types of risks, capital asset pricing model, and other models. After that, we're going to spend perhaps 3 weeks on cost of capital. That's in relation to the capital that companies have to raise in order to invest into, say, building a new factory. And the companies that raise that capital, of course, will have to pay perhaps some interest in return. So all of that relates to cost of capital. As you see, there will be a day off on the 3rd of June. So week 15 is going to be a bit of a holiday for all of us. After that, we'll just have a little bit more time to talk about capital structure, maybe for 1 or 2 weeks. Perhaps week 17 will not cover much of capital structure. Perhaps just some limited amount will be spent on capital structure, and maybe we can spend a little bit more time talking about the upcoming final exam. So week 18, of course, is your final exam. So that's the plan for the semester. Now, talking about grades, every week, except for this week and perhaps except for the weeks of the exam, so basically most of the weeks during the semester, after you've listened to the online video class and after you've read through the lecture notes, you will take your weekly tests. I will give you perhaps just several hours to complete that test. So make sure you do that on time. And that's important to do that because I will give a whole 40 points for those tests. It's very important. So for example, if we have, well, say something around 12 tests during this semester, 40 divided by 12, that's around 3.5 points for each of those tests. All right, so it's quite important to take each of them. And you will need 60 points, of course, to pass the test. If you do those weekly tests in time and correctly, then the exams will be relatively easy for you. So that's a huge benefit because you will already practice all of the problem solving before the exams. And additionally, if you take those tests in time, it will also help you to pass the course and get a good mark. All right. Beyond those tests, we'll have midterm exam accounting for 30 points, another final exam accounting for another 30 points. All right. So that is our plan for Financial Management 2 this semester. As I said, I will post all of the relevant material for you guys on Moodle. So make sure you do check Moodle regularly. So I think this is enough for the first week, a bit of an introduction of what we're going to do for Financial Management 2. But for next week, you really have to make sure you do study well. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.